Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to this talk. My name is Fabio Duarte. I'm a principal research scientist at MIT and associate director of Sensible City Lab. And today I'm talking about technology and cities. And I would like to start with two quotes, actually. And based on what we have seen in some of the presentations, we might agree that Eric Schmidt is right. There is no way a non-industry person can understand what is possible. It's just too new, too hard. There is no expertise. However, the technology is too important to be left to technology companies. And I think we should be aware of that here in this venue. And I will focus especially in cities. And why cities? Because cities cover only 3% of the Earth's crust, but more than half of the population live in cities. Cities consume more than 70% of energy in the world, and 75% of CO2-related emissions are driven by urban activities. In this regard, we need to remember that cities are social-technical artifacts. And when I talk about social-technical artifacts, it's super nice to talk about AI and all flash technologies. However, sometimes we forget that this is also technology. For cities such as Singapore, where we have these systems, we are blessed. But many parts of the world, they don't have that. So I think the challenge that we have is how to combine both, right? And I will give you two other quotes, the last quotes of my talk. One of them is a very well-known quote by Mark Weiser: "The most profound technologies are those that disappear." But there is another one. Another one, Arthur Clarke, 2001, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And in this case, we could think that technology is most powerful when it's invisible or when it's playful. And I think AI is in between both. We have seen today some solutions that are used in our daily lives, and they are already enmeshed in the urban fabric, in our daily life. However, we have seen lots of things here in these presentations that are quite playful, from Daniela's presentation to Armando's, to Paul's. So lots of things. We are still using this playfulness of technology before it becomes a black box, before it dissolves into the fabric and we don't care anymore, or we don't pay enough attention to that. And let me start with a few points. First, there is the bleak side of AI, and some of them have been already mentioned, right? It consumes a lot of water. So one data center in Querétaro, Mexico, consumes 15 billion liters of water. This is 13% of the metropolitan area. We know also that AI will consume all the water needed in Denmark in 2027, next year. We are using a lot of energy, as was said a lot of time before, and most importantly, but outside numbers, is that where energy is consumed, for which use they are consumed, we are probably reinforcing some social and geopolitical imbalances in the world. But there is obviously the bright side of AI. Luckily, this morning, all the presentations show to us the bright side of AI. And there are many, right? So we know that, okay, look, in some of the papers recently, in Nature, Science, etc. So AI can predict El Nino to 18 months in advance. I'm from Brazil, and El Nino is a real problem when it happens there. And if we can predict it beforehand, it will be a huge relief. A combination of robotics, high definition visual data, AI to monitor bees. And bees, we have been doing a lot of work in insect detection at Sensible City Lab, but even understanding how these insects behave can, on the one hand, help us to monitor biodiversity, but also understand the whole context of different ecosystems that we have in our cities. And this paper is quite interesting, is that, okay, look, we talk about of this ChatGPT, etc., but then they have compared image generation with text generation. And they prove, okay, look, actually, if we compare with how much time humans spend producing the same text, the same images, AI would do much better. But let me tell you two projects that we have been doing in the Sensible City Lab that I think is quite useful when we think about the technology that becomes invisible in our cities and how to leverage this power. The first one is called fiber space. And in this case, what we have been doing, we have been using fiber optics that we have in many cities and using the seismic data of these fiber optics to measure and detect different urban dynamics and functions. And we use this in San Jose, 50 kilometers of fiber optics, and by measuring the seismic movements that we can detect through fiber optics, we could see where traffic was happening, where bars were open or not, how people were moving. So I think we have these invisible infrastructures that make our cities, and we can leverage this data to our own benefits. But also, there is another aspect of that. When it comes to regions that they don't have this technology already embedded, such as slums. This is a slum, a favela in Brazil. So we can use these technologies also to understand these spaces, because when we think about cities growing in the world like Singapore, honestly, we should forget about Dubai, Doha, and Singapore. Cities are growing like this. So if we cannot understand this, we're doing a very bad job, right? And I'll tell you two things. One is the following. So we have been using explainable AI to understand which are the building features that can explain what is or not a slum. And by comparing this through data, we can indicate to the city, look, these areas of the cities most probably are in a process of slumization, and something might be happening. Or if you want to intervene, for instance, we have tuberculosis in Brazil, but most of the cases happen only in favelas. So I know if I know which spatial features explains where we have more of these cases, we can intervene more wisely. And also, we have been doing a lot of things using LiDAR in favelas. And this is an example. So it's one thing to understand favelas in a 2D space, but a different completely way of understanding is in a 3D space. So we are entering these slums with the community, because this is very important. Almost half of the time is negotiation with them where we can enter or not. And once we have their buy-in, we enter that with these technologies to understand the geometry, the morphology of these spaces in ways that nobody has done yet. And this is a very quick video showing that. It has some sound. So I'd like to conclude with the following. So all of what we're hearing here about AI or robotics, we should not think about robots in a city, robots in something. The city is a living environment, and it's a technological environment, and data is there. So the interaction is not the robot in the city, but the robots interacting with another technological artifact, which are cities. Thank you very much.